Yes, and we are having our election day today. So today is actually a public holiday for us in Singapore, with all of us having slots for voting. Yeah. So as I was saying, aside from I've been working in community building and nonprofit for the last 10 years of my life. But before that, I was actually a trained engineer myself, specifically mechanical and aerospace engineering. So although I did not choose to pursue a science career, I was really fortunate to have worked with some of the most amazing women scientists, and even surrounded by women who are passionately helping us push boundaries of human knowledge. So that's why one of the issues that we are very keen to always explore and talk about is how can we educate a next generation of women in STEM? How can we enable women who wants to continue careers in science? And what are some of the real challenges faced by women in this domain? And more importantly, how can we build a community to better support all these women? So I'm joined with Winnie and Maylin. We're going to have a conversation to this afternoon and hear their perspectives from the work they do. So hi, Wing Chi, and hi, Maylin. Hello.
Hi, Vivian. Hello, everyone.
Hello. So I'm just going to introduce them. For those who are online with us, do comment. And this is like a kitchen table conversation. We're just going to chat about some of the issues that they see on the ground and from the work they do. So if you have questions, do feel free. Ask away, and we would definitely circle back to those questions. So just your introduction. So Wing Chi is the Global Program Director of Cartier Women's Initiative. She was actually on the global stage just yesterday, a few hours back. It wasn't even yesterday, because she's in Paris right now. Am I right, Wing Chi?
Yes, correct.
Yes. So a bit about Cartier Women's Initiative. It's an annual international entrepreneurship program that's aimed at driving change by empowering women impact entrepreneurs. So something that was really important is that they included this additional category of science and tech, which she will be sharing about more. And then Maylin, we're familiar with her definitely in Singapore. She's a TED Fellow and an environmental scientist. Her research interests are mainly in marine ecology, experimental and marine conservation, and even science communication. She is fondly remembered for her work with the giant clams and is known as the giant clam lady. Maylin, you have to share the story later for our audiences that do not know yet. Yeah, so maybe just share with us, Wing Chi, about the work that you're currently working on at Cartier's Women Initiative. First, do you want to start first?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Happy to. Well, thank you so much for having us on this idea festival. I really love this idea of an idea festival, I have to say, and especially about ideas to reboot the world. And so the Cartier Women Initiative is one of the impact initiative of Cartier, which is a luxury maison house. And we have been at this work for about 14 years, actually. And so we run this global program supporting women entrepreneurs that are doing social and environmental impact work. And so historically, for the past 14 edition, now we have about 300 fellows within our program, and about 25 of them were specifically focused in this area of science and technology, and specifically, I would say also in deep tech, which is technology and science that actually requires not just software or SaaS or application development, but more actually the hard science and hard technology to develop. Oftentimes they have long research cycles, they have long commercialization cycle, and also potentially the idea of how to commercialize them is not so clear at the early stage of developing the science. We felt that actually in studying all of our population historically and learning about the stories of all these women in the science field, we have learned so much that actually their needs are a bit different, in the sense that they, as a community of women, are faced with even more challenges than other women who are impact entrepreneurs in their respective fields. And so what we wanted to do was then create a special category for them so that they receive additional support from the Cartier Women Initiative. And so for our 15th edition, this is our first time ever launching this global category, which we're very excited about. And like the original program, we will be supporting them with financial capital, social capital, and also human capital support. But that said, we will be combining them as a sisterhood together amongst especially the science and technology entrepreneur. And this is especially relevant because what we find overwhelmingly amongst the women scientists is that, what they would really love is this idea of a role model of someone who has been in the path before, and also additional connection and access within the various ecosystems. And so because of these two reasons, we have launched this category specifically also in partnership with Hello Tomorrow, which is a global deep tech program that is specifically supporting impact entrepreneurs in deep tech. And they have had long interest in their current participation in their program is about 25% women. And so they were very interested in finding another partner who was very interested in specifically in investing in women and all of that. And so it's been really great. And we just launched our call for application process. And the application timeline is due end of July. And so we hope that many, many women scientists and technologists who are leveraging business as a force for good to sort of work at, deliver on their STEM career, if you will, and make happen those things that they wanted to change in the world would apply to our program and be part of our community.
That's actually true. Like, when you mentioned about role models, I'm also just reflecting on my own journey when I was as an undergrad doing engineering. For my year, or rather the 4 years of my education in engineering, I don't remember I had a single women professor. It was all male professors. So, but that was, maybe it was the year and yeah, but that was just very interesting. And also I'm just seeing that, I think I saw this article. So in 2019, when they did a count of the Nobel prizes that were given out in sciences, in particular in physics, math, chemistry, only 20 went to women, so that was also a bit, starting to know that it's just 20 women like all these years. So Maylin, what about your own experiences being in the
I think I can relate to having a role model as well. And also, so before I sort of go into the sort of another direction of what kind of role models I'm looking for at this career stage is that just a very quick introduction of myself. I'm a marine biologist, and I studied a very special group of endangered marine species called the giant clams. So very, very happy to share about them. As its name suggests, they are really the world's largest living bivalves in the ocean. They can grow up to 1.5 meters long, and they can weigh over 200 kgs. So they are really massive clams, and unsurprising as well. Not just that the oceans need them as a source of food, shelter, and reef builders. They are actually also highly sought after as a source of food for many of the coastal communities living in the region where they are found. So a big chunk of my work is really looking at the different conservation issues of protecting them as well as preserving the overall ecosystem. The bigger message is to really talk about the preservation of the habitats and the ecosystems of where these animals come from. And kind of going back to what Vivian was saying as well, I think during my undergraduate course and even my classes, I think many of my lecturers tend to be the males. Although that said, they are also very inspiring figures for me, and they actually, are part of the reason why I stuck on this track. But I think of all the different people, it was my female supervisor that really I think made the sort of like that's the sort of the turning point for me of really saying that it's something that I can do, she can do, I can do, and she's been really awesome as well in terms of providing the support and even until now. And the reason why I said that sort of like what's different or what's unique about my career stage right now is that I just my daughter just turned 1, so I can say that I'm a freshly graduated mother in science, and I love that. It's a whole new world. It's a whole new different challenges, and in fact, even before giving birth, the pregnancy process, the giving birth, the child rearing, and it's going to be another many years to come. It was really very difficult for me as a journey, because I had no one around my age, around my career stage. Also having gone through say pregnancy and also childbirth and child rearing as well. So which actually surprises me as well, which kind of make me wonder, is it because of the nature of my career as a woman in science, regardless of whatever science, but is it because of the nature of academic or academia that that we're not seeing a lot of women retaining the position, but at the same time being moms in the position as well. So it was very difficult for me because I think my female supervisor was there, like she was there for me, and but to some extent there was a big gap. Like her daughter's already in the teenage years, so I'm sure she can relate a lot. Like we talk about it, but I still feel that there's a gap that I don't know what are the challenges that I would face as a young mom and in this sort of like career atmosphere. So I think shortly after I gave birth, that's when I got approached by one of the co-founders of this group that there's an international group that I'm part of right now. It's called Mothers in Science, and it's currently an entirely volunteer-driven group. We come from all parts of the world, from New Zealand to Singapore, with one representative each at the moment. We have them also in the Europe and America. So it's a really tough thing for us to do as well, because we all come from different time zones, and to really want to come together even for a meeting to share about our concerns and really like chat with each other. It's really tough, like and I think my co-founder, she's really done a great job in running and managing us for the past year, in trying to get us all together. But I think some of the things that we've been doing as our group is really providing resources, providing stories of other moms as well, which is something that I didn't get as much. So that was a gap for me, at least in the local context here in Singapore. And yeah, it's once I actually got to know more stories of other moms in science, the kind of struggles, current struggles, modern day kind of struggles, including like the recent COVID, where we're all stuck working at home. It's amazing how much has been how much stress and how much tension goes on at home, trying, and the guilt, and it's exhausting, and just before this event, I think I have definitely gone through some kind of a breakdown of sorts. It's really cumulative, but at the same time, I'm really grateful right now, because I think there are more people understand the role itself, or the changes in my roles. But at the same time, we keep on cheering me on that it's okay, it's possible, you can do it. And I mean, as Vinny was saying as well, it's an ecosystem that needs to be built up, and every part of the ecosystem matters. And as a woman in STEM and a mom in STEM, I think it's broadened that ecosystem for me, and who knows what's going to be next for me as well.
Yeah, that's also true. Yeah, sorry, Minchi, you were saying, because I think you have built all these how many hundreds of fellows together. Is this one of like the outputs that you wish to achieve, having the support system for one another?
Yes, I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because I think overwhelmingly, when you take a look at the community of women entrepreneurs within our program, I think indeed they share the same challenges that they may be facing, rather raising money, how to acquire customers, and etc. The entrepreneurship journey. But you know what? At least I don't know what percentage I put. I would say at least half of the conversation is about actually life as a woman and in the different phases of the life. And it's so interesting, Maylene, that you talk about sort of the idea of motherhood, because very, very fortunately in our program we have women from all age groups. So women starting, right after graduation, like undergrad, who have started a business, and so the younger generation of entrepreneurs and type of drive as a young person. And then there's also others who are like mid-career, whom have been in a company for many years, or maybe perhaps in science have been doing research for many years, and then felt like, hey, I'd like to really see this happen within my lifetime. That's what we get a lot, and why they pursue the entrepreneurship journey. So they want to see a product or service out there, seeing the science or technology that they've been working on help actual people. And so then they pursue entrepreneurship, and then they're like sort of mid career, if you will. But also many entrepreneurs who, because in the journey of becoming a mother, have identified and realized that there's some certain challenges in the world, problems that they actually could solve leveraging their scientific or technological background.
Exactly.
And so one fellow actually from the last edition really resonated with me, because she's originally from Mexico, and she is a biologist, and she so her name is Adriana Luna, and then she started a company there, Tierra del Mon, which actually developed agricultural fertilizer. And this all started because when she had her children, they were allergic to non-organic food. And so basically she discovered that she had to purchase all organic food. And then she learned all about the agrochemicals that was impacting the food ecosystem, and how actually so many other families couldn't afford organic food for the whole family. And so she decided to leverage her science background and work on agrochemicals or fertilizers that actually can democratize access to organic foods. And so just really inspiring, like the journey of motherhood can bring. So
it's real life motherhood right now.
Yes.
Right, I have a friend helping as well. This is pretty much like like a normal dinner conversation, and she'll be just back and forth. This is pretty much the life of work from home right now. No, sorry, we need to please continue.
No. I was gonna say, well, what does she think? Our fourth speaker of today.
I'm sure she doesn't mind. I'm sure she doesn't mind the organic food. But I mean, like, I can really relate to that as well. I think like motherhood sign kind of just brings out a different persona in to some extent, and that's when I think like moms who are also entrepreneurs or scientists as well, that's when they really become invested in a certain area. And so for me, like being in the environment science, I think for me it's more of leaving a positive environmental legacy for my daughter now. Like what I've been working so hard is to really try and promote the idea and awareness of environmental literacy, and why is it important for us to conserve the oceans from a larger point of view, because I think it's hard to relate. I mean, especially issues on oceans, they tend to be a little bit far from, say, like, issues on land, issues of air. But now that I have her, and she's going to be growing up in a world that hopefully I can leave something positive. And that's kind of like that kind of reshapes and changes the perspective. But I can totally relate to like the fellows that are part of the community with Cartier Women Initiative. I can imagine that's one of the reasons what really drives them to do what they do.
Yeah, we really need you in life underneath the ocean category of this UNSDG goal. If you know, of all of the fellows and applications that we have looked at historically, that is the goal with the least number of women.
Oh, I see.
So this is why we have to make it work in all stages of life, so you can continue this work as you become, a mother and grandmother and all of that.
I think for like science, it's legacy building, right? It's like whatever research they're working on, it's also on previous, years of experiences. Is that our fourth speaker that's going to come up? So it's really true, and it's like we need this sort of sustainable pipeline, right? I would say of women just picking up after one another and continuing all these kind of work in order for that. And so one interesting story about Mei Lin that we faced last year. So she spoke very recently at last year's December's TEDx Singapore. So it's the same, right? Realities of what mothers in science would face. So one of the sessions, she actually brought her little mini me. Ada came along for her rehearsal as well. So like in between, and then it was very interesting because and then all the volunteers and other speakers like took turns while Mei Lin was doing the rehearsal on stage. All of us took turns to carry baby Ada around. And like so at that point it's like it needs to have like this whole ecosystem of people supporting one another, because I think things like motherhood or even parenthood, it's a very different journey. And also, of course, for people like who are in entrepreneurs or like even the scientists and technologists, like it'll be hard to weave that into their current work life as well. Yeah. So like, on the talk of like, we were talking about women in STEM and all that. We talk about women who are entrepreneurs, technopreneurs. When we say women in science, is it just going to be the researchers, or what constitute as someone as women in STEM? Is it just all the researchers and the PhDs, or what are some of your thoughts on that?
I'm happy to start. I mean, like for us, when we're a program that's focused on entrepreneur, and so I suppose for us, we thought of women in STEM as both like across the research categories, across if you continue and join a company, if you continue and then you start a business. And for us, we wanted to support the idea that entrepreneurship within science and technology is one viable path, of career path, depending on what you're looking for in life, right? And so for us, when we think about the overall group population of women in STEM, we think about all the different career paths that one can have when they have the interest in science and technology.
Yeah, I think it's quite wide ranging. As much as I think there's always a stereotype, when you start to narrow it down, especially, if we start with just scientists, it's always about a white man with hair, basically a man with white hair or crazy hair, in a lab coat, but like nothing of females. But when it comes to women in STEM, and I think having sort of interacted with the community that we have built through Mothers in Science, many moms relate to their work very differently. So some of them are at the undergraduate level working on a relevant degree in science and tech engineering. We have moms who basically exited science, an academic career, becoming an entrepreneur, becoming some independent, working outside, but still sort of using the science that they do. So actually, even just among the community or the international group that we are, some of us are science communicators, so they can come out becoming using the science or using the skills that they know from science and tech, but going into communications and journalism. We have some who are engineers, or biotech or bioengineers as well. So it's pretty. I guess the definition is not very strict, and every mom in science who relates to, or early woman in science who relates to this phrase, would try and tell you otherwise, especially from the general definition or even the stereotype.
I see. But what about like in the context of like different cultures? Because I think Mei Lin, you mentioned that in Asian context or in the region, there's not much communities like that's supporting, as compared to like Michi, your experience in Europe or other places outside of Asia. Yeah.
So I think I only got to learn a little bit more about like maybe STEM groups that are more focused on women scientists and engineers, but in general, it doesn't seem like I think they are there. I think the organizations are there, but their presence are not very well known or not very well made. So I think locally in Singapore it's not too bad, because I think we do host the Gender Summit on a biannual basis. So through that summit, then that's when the the topics about gender inequality at workplaces, the parenthood support, as well as what can be done to support academic parents better will happen during this summit. But in other occasions, and in something that we're trying to do right now, is to engage with different groups around the Asia Pacific region that are focused on helping or highlighting women in STEM. We're having trouble looking for them, either that their communication channels are not very obvious, language barriers, and yeah, I mean, we acknowledge that these countries are big. They definitely have a big community of women in STEM, but we just don't have any way of accessing, and we're literally just going from contact to contact, like basically through potential collaborators that we've worked with. Would they be able to help with a survey that we're hoping to distribute in August? So just very quickly about the survey, it's a very ambitious one. It's a global, we call it a global survey, that we're hoping to look at the factors and the basically being able to quantify the reasons why academic parents are feeling burnout, feeling stressed, as well as does it actually affect their general productivity before and after being a parent. And that's something that I can relate to as well. So broadly, I think that it's not a hypothesis. Broadly, I think every parent would agree that to some extent productivity has fallen. But when we start to actually look at the male academics versus the female academics, that's when we really see very big differences. And in fact, I think there was an article that about a sort of a survey. I think it's a localized survey in probably Europe or in the US, looking at basically comparing the outputs, paper outputs of academic parents during the COVID period. And it was shocking because the number of female academics that are submitting papers during this period is really significantly less compared to their male counterparts, which is not shocking, but it's just down that we have statistics to actually support that. Within parenthood itself, it's the moms that suffer the bulk of the challenges. Because of like having to handle and juggle many different things at the same time. It'd be interesting to hear like if we have heard from other moms, not just moms, but I'll be interested to hear like what are the other kinds of challenges that your fellows may have faced apart from maybe say motherhood or funding. It'd be nice to hear like what would be the other kind of challenges.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many things to talk about. So first of all, we would love to help you see if we have any access to people you're looking for your survey. So we should connect around that afterwards.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah.
Because we have been in cultivating and doing research around this, creating this program. We were in touch with a bunch of science and technology organizations and women, and so perhaps there may be some that you haven't reached yet, or etc. But we do see very much what you described, which is this idea that North America, Europe, very strong in terms of a lot of. I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, because when we say a lot, it actually means they exist and you can find them. Because in the very end, actually, I think there's probably not enough, and this is why they are still growing. We could probably for sure use more. But we did struggle, just like you, actually, in many of the developing countries like Africa and Asia, emerging Asia. In Asia, we found like organizations in Singapore and in Australia, but then outside of that, it was really sort of feels like far and in between. So. So yeah, I think I'm glad you guys are doing the survey, because I think quantifying that experience is so valuable, especially amongst this population of people.
Sure.
And then in terms of science and tech, women entrepreneurs, that what they face as challenges within the entrepreneurship journey of science and technology, I mean, funding would be for sure one that is, very gigantic. And actually, I don't know if folks realize that. I mean, I think it's very commonly known now that only 3% of venture capital goes to women. But what people might not realize is actually for those women working in deep tech, and for those women who are not working on areas that maybe one might commonly associate with women working on, such as beauty, fashion, consumer goods, these sort of more, like, I guess, if you will, like perceived as woman categories, this 3% is even worse. And so, for example, I think I remember when I was looking into this, for women who were working on like robotics, like, there's only like 1.8% who was working on robotics, and then they only receive 1% of funding. 1%, like, it is just super tiny. And then for AI, it was something similar. Also, for 3% of the women who was working on it, they only received 1.5% of the funding. So it was totally even worse than the 3% that we have been, seeing in the overall women category. And so it's incredibly difficult. And then, to your point about beyond funding, what else is there? There's also like this idea that, well, the social connection and building a business is really important, right? Rather, it is when you're building a B2B business, corporate access, and etc. And there are stats that for every one woman executive in STEM, there's 12 men. And so, so actually the work has to be, one, we need to create awareness amongst men that, hey, you need to be looking out for the woman. To begin with, because we need to work on the pipeline and growing the number of women, but at the end of the day, we also just need the existing population to be seen. And so this is one of the reasons why I think for our program, we focus a lot on bringing media visibility to the women who are working on STEM and leveraging businesses for the good, and then hopefully giving them more visibility and helping them, maybe perhaps similar to your situation, what you described, Maylin, that maybe with the visibility and communication, that others will see them, and for the work that they really have been doing, that's really remarkable.
Yeah, no, I think I completely agree. And I think you raised a very important point as well, is basically getting the our male counterparts support in the work that we do, and as well as championing for more support for the women, either in tech or in entrepreneurship, as well as in STEM as well. And I think I've been very fortunate that I've in sort of growing up in that ecosystem, but at the same time, just feel like maybe whether is it just me and my community of female scientists that we need to be more proactive again, or do we actually need a continuous support from the faculty, not just faculty, but from the male counterparts? I mean, like just within the faculty, we're seeing, I mean, definitely see a difference. As much as I respect them, and they're my seniors and they're my supervisors, but like I can't help but feel that what is it that we're lacking, or what is it that we're not matching up with the standards of not being part of the department and faculty as well. I mean, there are other reasons, I'm sure. For me, a personal reason is that I'm really in terms of confidence, but also not really sure if it's a role that I can really play well as an academic as a faculty member in academia, because it's really tough. So there are, I guess there are many reasons and many considerations. But I think if there definitely is appropriate support at different levels, that would basically help boost confidence, boost chances of getting more females feeling that like yes, they can do it. Yeah, and that's why we really look out for as well role models. Going back to the whole idea of role models, because true role models, they definitely have gone through the ups and downs, or more downs than ups. But it's the show that it's possible, and as long as you put in the effort, and not just effort, but I think having the right support, you can get to where they are.
Yeah, it's like they've helped roadmap the entire journey for a lot of younger women. You have to think about like, okay, if, I want to still become a mother, and that's sort of the progression that happens along the way. Yeah, and even like I really like how you both are saying also to have buy-in from not just within the women community but from the men as well, and from all aspects of the community. Like Mark was like saying just in the comments, that they're gonna help as well. I think I would suppose he runs a venture company as well. So yeah, it is to highlight issues, right? Like 3% of VC, like we didn't know before, which you mentioned, right? So right now, once we identify all these potential gaps, or rather existing gaps, then it's easier for all of us to come in and say, okay, that's a problem that needs more help, that needs more support. But to what both of you were like saying, it's so hard to find women in STEM. Both of you are saying, right, even for the women, the Cartier Women's Initiative, it's very hard to find women. And Maylin as well, you're just reaching out to complete the survey and launch it globally, but it's so hard to find women. Why do you think that's so? Why do you think that's the case? Just really out of curiosity, is it just, of course, numbers matter, right? If there's not as many of them, that's one. Do you feel that they are also not as vocal, or why do you think it's so hard to find them?
Well, I mean, I'm sort of speaking from experience as well. So for instance, I think when we're looking for potential funding and also potential support, it tends to be a bit specific, because like it goes down to the field and the subject matter. And my subject matter is pretty niche, but at the same time, it's also one of, I personally feel that it's one of the tougher fields to obtain funding, because it's on conservation of environment, and honestly, the return actually the expected returns on environmental conservation work is really, really low. On top of it's more like a to some extent a CSR, a social responsibility, a feel good factor, and so that kind of narrows down to the kind of funding or the kind of organizations that I can go to. So for instance, like really now knowing that Cartier Women Initiative, I started to, I mean, I found out about it a couple of years back, but I also realized that, it didn't really quite fit into what I was doing, and I wasn't sure if they were looking for candidates like myself, for example. So that's just one example of why I think why like some it's tough to attract the women in science. In fact, I think locally we do have a few. So for instance, like the L'Oreal for Women in Science, which is actually a global initiative, but they have the local chapters. I think it's been very successful in Singapore. It's already in its 11th or 12th year right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So they've been supporting two women scientists, one in life sciences, one in engineering, and I'm very, very fortunate to be one of the recipients for life sciences, which I actually still think that it's a major achievement for myself, because not just it's really because of the science that I represent within life sciences. Even within the topic of life sciences, there's a lot of definitely a lot of support, emphasis on the other sciences like that are related to health, medicine, as well as biotech, and really. So I guess like I think I would probably. I think I'm still one. I think the only one that represents environment among all the recipients. So and I just hope that shows like not just a role model, but just shows my colleagues who are also struggling to some extent in their own different ways to actually realize that we do stand a chance. We're on par. It's not just because we're doing like as my husband sometimes says, pseudoscience. So terrible. But we're actually doing something meaningful, and I think committees like L'Oreal will appreciate that as well. And I think that's still one of the major initiatives that supports local female scientists. Apart from that, I think it's something else like they call the Young Scientist Award, and I do see several of my peers, but again not environment science, but really very amazing women scientists as well, who are, some of them are moms, really doing great work. But like perhaps I think like sort of just to quickly, not quickly, but more like add on one point is that it could be also like trying to put up a strong front. So just like as an example, for myself as well, I feel that if you want to show the good parts of your work, you know, that you're successful in the work that you do in science, and you're also successful in parenthood or family, and so that might be also a reason why fewer in maybe the more conservative societies like us in Asia, sort of, I don't think it's a taboo, but rather they might not like to be too upfront about it. And that's when I realized that if I don't know what's the reality, then that makes it really unrealistic to some extent. And that's something that I struggle until now, which is that how did my colleagues, or how did this female scientist that I know of, how is she coping? How did she do it? Like, you know, did she have extra help at home? What is her support system? Who is her village in helping her, you know, care for her kids while she you know, goes writing for grants, papers, and doing like awesome science. So that's when I realized that, you know, it's just a part where people don't really want to show. So that's yeah. So that's something, I'm not saying I'm trying to change, but I am very open about my journey as a mom and my struggles. And as I go along, like being able to vent out like my struggles to occasionally, that's when I learn and I grow, and well, not really necessarily become better, but being able to manage better, and acknowledging where I really need help, and when I can say and when I should ask for help as well. And I think that's also partly due to the society, and a more conservative society as well. That's where, because maybe we just want to try and do everything ourselves and not really ask for help. But yeah, it's still a learning thing for me, and I do sometimes not ask for help when I really need it, but it's a sort of a slow growing process to ask for help when I need them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you brought out a very important point of this like polished look of how women, or especially mothers, you know, and it's, I mean, for myself, I don't have kids, I'm not married, but every time, you know, when people publish, I don't know if it's just an Asian thing or rather the articles that I see when they talk about certain women, that's, you know, like women who's done successful work in whichever areas, it's always like, oh, and also mother of 5, mother of 4, like kind of thing. And then it's just, you know, you just have this mentality that like, wow, you know, it's like you need to have a successful career and achieve that in your own personal life, right? It's as if that the lines are blurred and you need to achieve both of that in order to be categorized as that. Like, I know it's a very bad stereotype, but you know, stories like that still appear. It's like when you're asking for interviews, they always ask, so how many kids do you have? You know, like they want to know, but they don't share the real story behind it, like what you were saying, like maybe they had help at home, or how they did, you know, it's not just the perfect picture of like them who's like nicely dressed all the time, and then like having kids running after them and having a successful career, right? Yeah, so I really like, for those that don't know Maylin, she actually posts very candidly about her journey so far, like as a young mother, which I appreciate, right? Sometimes, like, you know, you would show like, it's like, no, I don't look nice and like tidy hair all the time because I'm a mom, right? And have to,
yeah. I think it helps friends and family to understand to some extent, but at the same time just being more real. It's something that I struggle as well. I mean, when I see, like, exactly as what Vivian said, I mean, these stories are nice, especially, you know, being able to see that it's possible. Moms with jobs and kids and family can succeed, but it'll be nice to sort of know a little bit of the journey, which is sometimes people don't really share. I mean, we're not asking for really specific details, but it's just that. So sometimes, like, does my child like throw tantrum, and is it normal? And that's something that I just want to know. Yeah, because I just want to know, like, it's like, 'cause
Is it
everything
me
was
or is it the baby?
yeah. So
Very normal.
yeah, it's definitely a struggle because I mean, for me, it's always about I will always do self-blaming first. Like, I mean, I wouldn't blame my child because she's young. She's not really, she doesn't understand what she's doing right now. So it will always go back to me. And it took me a while to realize that it's not me. Sometimes it's the system. Sometimes it's just not getting people to understand. And sometimes it's just a cultural thing as well. Being in a more Asian society, I mean, not just loosely broadly categorizing it, but but being in Singapore, I think it's almost like like comparing with others as well. It's something that we do very often. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting, I think, in this conversation and talking about, why sometimes we don't reach a certain woman. And oftentimes, what I see amongst the women in our program, and this is true whether they're scientists or not, it's this idea that they didn't realize that we were looking for them. They think that there's going to be someone who's like, super perfect. It's like, no, it couldn't be me. Like, I'm like, no, it's you. And it's like, no, your work is really great. Like, we looked through like 1,500 application and thought you were really fantastic. They're like, no, not me. And so, if anything, during this process of our call for application process, we get a gazillion questions from women who are applying, and we say, just apply. I think it could be you. I really think it really could be you. And so I think it's this idea of the perfectionist mindset. They think like, we have to be like, rather it's family and work and the business all like perfect before they apply and try for something. And so very true. And then what you mentioned about asking for help, and I see we have one of the comments from Bryce also agreeing with this idea of asking for help. It's incredibly true because, in our program, we offer so many resources to these women. And sometimes I think they still have some hesitation in taking it because they feel like maybe that's like a sign of weakness or that they haven't got it together. And really, I think the biggest, I tell everybody, like, I've asked for all the help for you. So I've asked on help and look for anyone who wants to help this group of people, all of us, in advancing women impact entrepreneurs. So please, take up the resources and ask for the help. And it's very normal. And I think being able to help each other is really wonderful. So yeah.
Is that Ada making her appearance again?
Yeah.
Agree.
Wearing new shoes. That's why she's so excited.
Oh. So at some point, I would love to hear about the story of the giant clams.
Yeah, no.
So become the giant clam lady.
You want to share? Yeah, please share with us the giant clam story. She calls it. I saw the other day. She was calling it her other babies. So
yeah, I mean, well, before being like, I would say that I've always been a mother. It's just a different form and to different organisms. I would just loosely put it that way. And sometimes I actually very loosely tell people saying that like taking care of my child is very similar to taking care of my giant clams. which is I mean, some people find it very extreme, but I'm like, it's the same. Like, you really have to show love and care, and talk to the animals, and they actually do understand, or they do appreciate the extra effort in caring for the animal itself. So anyway, going back to how
she muted.
she muted. I don't know how she does it. She knows. Say hello.
She's a digital native, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started studying as an undergraduate, and being a very young scientist, or really trying to be a scientist at that time, is really just being very curious about the animals, and learning as much as I can. So on one field trip, we my friend basically, I've been studying them for about a year, and my friend basically say like, come on, then let's just go find you one wild giant clam. Like, apparently you haven't seen them in the wild before. So I was like, oh yeah, that's true. Like, I've having studied them for about a year or so. I haven't seen a wild one and how it looks like and where does it live actually. And on that field trip, we weren't sure if we're gonna see one, because we know that they're pretty rare in Singapore, given that the local conditions. And if you're interested, thank you, Vivian, for highlighting the talk as well. Really, really nice talk. I mean, like, having sort of watched myself again, I mean, it kind of rekindled like that positive, my positive attitude towards my work itself, and why I do what I do as well. So anyway, we did find one, and everyone just excitedly called me to like, come look at this clam, like, and we started just having a conversation, and they were asking me so many different questions, and I tried my best to answer. I couldn't quite consider myself an expert at that time, but it was more because of my interest and having studied them. And at the end of the trip, and a very good friend of mine right now, Ria Tan, who is also one of our prominent wildlife enthusiasts here in Singapore, she just decided on her blog. I mean, we basically blog about our trips and experiences as well as what we see. She just decided to call me Mei Lin, the giant clam girl who came along on the field trip with us for her first time. She saw a clam. We found a clam for her, and that's how I got my name. And it's a nickname that never left. People sometimes don't even call me by my real name.
Yeah.
So like, oh, it's the giant clam girl. Yeah, it's really sweet of people. And just a little sort of a fun fact, like on my Facebook, people tag a giant clam with my name. So it's almost like that's my profile picture. Permanent profile picture. It's always a giant clam. It's like Mei Lin.
Whenever we see like soft toys like of clams or like accessories, we will take a photo and send to Mei Lin.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent branding.
Yes. So she
For the
also
clam menu.
correct. So she also helped like put women scientists and even the Singapore stories of women in science on the global stage. I think was it 2015, 2016 or 2017. So Mei Lin actually opened the TED stage with her talk, on like giant clams. So the TED team even gave her a shirt that says like it's a calamity, right? So everyone's like making puns of the clam. And
I guess that's the closest to a meme for me. I mean, really, really grateful for the TED Fellows team and their support as well. And I was really surprised to be opening the stage for the entire conference. I mean, honestly, I didn't have any inkling of like how big it was, but Dave was very, very excited. And I know back home, Dave was like, "Oh my goodness, Mei Lin's opening the entire TED 2017," and I was like, "Does it really count? Because like we're a side event. Is it really part of the big one?" But I'm really proud to have represented my country, my work as a woman in science as well. And I think it's really just it opened many opportunities. And I really reached out to people who really wanted to do more for the environment, either oceans and until today, I still receive emails from time to time. And I think that helps sort of like like some kind of affirmation of the work that I do. And I really, and it's really through science communication. And that's sort of like another aspect of work that I do. And sort of going back to what Wing was saying as well, like when like the struggle you have is getting women to apply for something. That's what I struggle as well, getting my colleagues to apply for awards. Or I mean, like to some extent, I think there is that worry. But I really tell them, you just have to give it a try. You give it a shot. You never know what they're looking for. You never know that if that's you who they're looking for as well. And it's really an opportunity to be in a network where you really meet many different people, and I think that's where I feel really fortunate. I think I have done applying a lot of things. And to some extent, sometimes it's also wondering like, oh my goodness, like should I? But at some point, I would just sort of tip over and say like, I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a try. And who knows? I think it's the people that I meet that matters more these days than actually reaching the final sort of the finishing line. Of course, reaching the finishing line is great. But I think even in that process of submitting my work, that sort of raising that awareness, like, hey, there's someone who actually doing something interesting. I think that's also part of communication, and that's what that's what I look forward to right now. As much as it's actually to some extent quite tiring, because it's sometimes some of the application process is quite long, but I think through that process, I do learn a lot more about myself and what I'm doing right now and how I'm pitching as well. So every application is different, and I would strongly encourage everyone, men, women as well, to go for something.
It's really true. So at Women in Asia, we uncover and search for narratives on more role models of more stories that's authentic, right? Is that Ida? Is that Ida? Hi. She wants to be part of the live stream.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was saying, so and more often than not, whenever we reach out to women, and then they'll go like, no, I don't think it's me. It's exactly like what Richie was saying. They'll say, no, I don't think I'm good enough. How about next year when I do more projects, or how about next year when I complete this, right? I'm not ready, and things like that. Like, we hear so much of that, especially from women, and it takes like double amount of like coaxing to get them to share their stories and tell them that, yes, I think that's really cool, like, yes, this is wonderful, like, we want to hear that. Then they'll come back with, are you sure people want to listen to me? Are you sure I have good things to talk about? Are you sure? Like, so it's always this that we realize, and interestingly, most of it from our few years of experiences all came from women. So yeah, that's also something that we need to help build. I think it's part of like creating more role models and coaxing all these role models to even step out and start talking, right? The more role models we place in front of our girls or the youths, right, then that can shift the whole perspective of not just having a guy in a white lab coat, and that's the imagery of science. Yeah, so, yeah, even like looking at Maylin right now, like, this is authentic, right? Mother in science. This is the reality of her. And I think that would make that makes me feel a lot more comforted. Like, it doesn't need to be the perfect image of how it is like working from home. Like, this is the reality.
Yeah. I mean, I think just like over this period of like lockdown, and I mean, in Singapore we didn't call it lockdown, we call it circuit breaker. Well, that's another story. I think. I mean, I'm not very sure myself. But we basically had to stay at home. We didn't have childcare. And yeah, I literally had to bring her to almost all of my meetings. Sometimes even serious ones, sometimes even ones that are just really long discussions. But she'll just either sit with me or sleep on me, or I have to just be carrying her and walking around the house while listening to the meetings remotely. It's just sort of preparing. I think it's helpful to prepare colleagues in advance that this is happening, and I may not be able to respond very quickly, but at the same time, they've been all very supportive. They really like seeing her as well. She's almost like a mascot. I think that's one of the projects. Yeah, one of the projects actually said that, yeah, she should just be the mascot, like, because she's literally there, and she probably she didn't understand, but she probably has been there since the start of the discussions as well. Yeah. But I think it's also nice. I mean, quite coincidentally, it has made me realize that there's so many milestones and there's so many things that she's growing so fast. So on the really good side is that I got to see many of her milestones, including walking. So she's now like Yeah, so literally she started before circuit breaker just crawling. Now she's like walking. And
Wow.
yeah. So I think that's what I also heard from many parents as well. As much as it was a really tough period, but many of them actually saw the bright side of like having their kids
Yeah.
with them at home. And that's how I see it. Of course, like there'll always be a guilt. I think it's for all parents or all careers. But yeah, I think for my female scientist friends is definitely not being able to finish the work on time or finish work in any case. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you just mute me again? No, he didn't.
Yeah, it's sort of also a new way of work. So I'm pretty sure Baby Ada is going to be the youngest speaker of campus party. Is that correct?
Yeah, even TEDx Singapore as well.
She's an early adopter. I think we call that. Wow.
Truly digital native. She started live stream.
Yeah.
Oh. So yeah, very true. I think it's yeah. I think it's interesting during the COVID-19 period where a lot of parents are working from home. Something that's sort of really inspiring is also, I mean, we have mostly been talking about moms with their kids and juggling work and kids. But actually, I've also heard many stories and have had many friends whom it's the dad who is working and with the kids at home. And so that has also been really, I think, inspirational in terms of I think it builds a lot of empathy on what really happens and to be able to experience what the woman experienced and to really try to create this new world of how actually gender balance we could have work life to be. So yeah.
It literally gave us this whole period to prototype how it feels like to co-parent. Right?
Yeah. And I think also at least for us at Mothers in Science also, I think we basically, I mean, it's almost like an experiment on its own, right? COVID itself and having parents all being at home. We really see the stark difference between mother's contribution versus the dad's contribution. And of course, there are many other different factors, but I mean, broadly in general, we already see a gender difference in there because of the bond and the interaction that a child and mother versus with father has.
And I mean, I just hope that this would also, for not just the mothers who have really young kids, but mothers who have teenage kids, for them to start to realize parenthood, this is the full picture. It's not just having the moms taking care and cooking meals, instead of, I think I saw one chat on Facebook. They were saying, why is it that during lunch people still go to the mom and say what's for lunch? It's the automatic response. It's yeah, it's but and then from the women it's why? It's why can't you ask your dad, right? It's automatic response. It's you go to your mom. It's if both of them are still are having their career, right?
Working,
it's yeah, working. Yeah.
Probably because the dad is also going to the mom. What's for lunch?
Yes, true. Yeah, that's true.
So perhaps that's where we need to start with the husband.
Yes. We need to start with the husband for those at home. Yeah. But on the line of I mean, now that understanding the realities of motherhood and parenthood, I'm really very curious about then how can we getting support for the existing women who's out there in building their science career. But secondly, it's how can we pass on all these knowledge or rather findings to our next generation? For girls, how can we start shifting the narrative and getting them more excited about science or getting them to see is there any programs that you both are working on or thinking about to encourage them, other than getting more role models on board?
Maylene, do you want to start first? Or?
No, I was gonna say maybe you can.
Okay. Okay. I can start first. Okay. So it's interesting. Like, so for us, we're focused on developing more clarity and more visibility about women in science and tech that is pursuing the entrepreneurship path. And so hopefully by creating role models, sharing their stories, and their stories not just on the success of their business, but also on the impact they have in the world, because I think ultimately that is the merit of leveraging the business as a force for good. And then also oftentimes, just as with all conversation with women, is, so how have you done it with, like, creating a family or no family, or the lifestyle that you have chosen, right? So I think that is the plan that we have in sort of trying to quantify, I guess, if you will, the impact that women can have if they had resources to support them in creating these businesses that are leveraging business as a force for good and in the field of science and technology. Yeah. And actually, and worth another mention is, I think many of the fellows in our program are actually also, let's say, ed tech entrepreneurs, but focus on STEM. So and that is actually really common within our program, because there's a lot of women are really interested. The top two UN SDG goals that women work on is healthcare and then education. And so I think you can see sort of like, and I suppose, this is why investing in women is so important, right? There's a lot of statistics out there about how investing and supporting women really change the world, because they support their respective family, they make sure their kids go to school, and et cetera, et cetera. So that we see that also in the field of impact entrepreneurship amongst women.
Yeah, no. So, like, probably just from the perspectives of mothers in science, I think one of the plans or one of our ideas is to basically have a sort of a mentorship program as well. So rather than say, so I mean, it's a bit niche again as well, but it will still cover the women in STEM group. But it's really to have an avenue for young moms who are in STEM fields to have people that they can actually work with or talk to when they need advice and suggestions on different time points of their career. And in fact, actually, we have been doing, we've been quite active on our Twitter, asking questions about what kind of support that actually young academics would want to help them sort of in their parenthood journey. Many of them are actually seeking journeys or stories from senior moms. So moms that have already been, successful and sort of, to some extent, like a process that has already been carved out. So they want to know how they've gone through each of it, and what are the chances of actually staying and being retained, or in academia or in STEM fields as well. And even for myself, I think I do find this very relevant, because it gives you an idea and some level of confidence for sure, on how it'll be like to stay on as a woman in science, or a woman in STEM. Yeah, but I mean, going back to perhaps like even before, much earlier before even deciding as a career, at least for our field or my field in environmental science and marine sciences, more specifically, what we have is we do try and encourage our students to go for internships and volunteers. And I think there are a lot, more and more of my colleagues who are more taking up more of them as interns and volunteers. That gives them an idea of what the work is like. And I'll be frank, like I think when people think of marine science and marine biology, it's really to some extent a bit glamorous, like, donning on a wetsuit, scuba diving gear, and then jumping into clear blue crystal waters doing work. But honestly, and I think that's something I show on my IG, is that I was just squatting on squatting at a sidewalk, taking a toothbrush and cleaning my clams, and that's it. That's really the reality of one aspect of marine biology. I'm not putting down that we're not, like, I didn't don on a wetsuit and scuba diving gear as well, but I think I wanted to also show the next generation, the next generation of young female scientists, young females, or even males as well, is that the work we do is very diverse and broad. It not necessarily is what you think, in terms of whether you do, you study big animals, or you study really big topics like cancer, or drug development, for instance. There are many different aspects to it, and the process isn't as straightforward as what we sometimes see in media. So I think that's really part of communication as well, and being able to share the realistic parts of it, and how everyone is doing their science, I think really helps to put things into perspective and get our young people to see that as well, and appreciate that, okay, if this is something that I want to get on board, I want to make science as a career, and I think that helps, because once they see that, they realize that, okay, it's going to be a long process to reach to wherever stage I want. So I know many friends and colleagues who have gone a really long route before they decided that they want to take on a PhD or master's as well, purely for the same reason also, because they're not sure if it's really for them. And also they're not sure if it's something that they will have the tenacity to stay on as well, especially in environmental sciences. So I think it's, again, being real about what you're doing, and I think it helps. And I think with social media being so like viral, I think that's the word to use these days. It's really a platform to use properly to help engage with the next generation of potential scientists.
Yeah, that's actually also true. I think because in the nature of being in science, especially, the journey is so long, right? If you go through, is she okay?
No, she just was very proud that she got my attention to stand here.
Now.
Yeah, it's like I did it. It's a milestone for her. Yeah. So I was saying, because I do work with a lot of women scientists as well in my field of work, within volunteer teams. Actually, TEDx NTU, all my team are PhD students. So, and understanding from them, it's a very long career path, right? It takes at least 5 years to complete the PhD, to pursue science. And then for them, it's like, then again, after doing 5 years researching about that particular domain, then what happens next? So I think what the Cartier Women's Initiative has done is really very interesting, because it showed more possibilities in not just like, okay, if I pursue environmental science, like this is all that I can do. But right now it's like, oh, okay, with like stories of women who are previous scientists, right? And then now they can move on to be entrepreneurs, and even move on to alternative paths like in education. I think these all are very crucial to let people realize that, like, okay, hey, it doesn't matter if this is something that I'm interested to do, I can start pursuing and pivot my knowledge and other stuff. Is she gonna?
She wanted to chime in. She's like, yes.
There's other paths.
Yes, there's other paths.
And I mean, Vivian, you are a great example that there's other paths, right? I mean, you started in science, but eventually realized that you'd wanted to do something else, and and perhaps do you think for women, and I wonder if this is true for men also, where like, because it seems like the path to science actually in the early years is quite defined, right? You do a master's, you do a PhD, and then you do a postdoc, and then another postdoc, and then sort of there's that moment, and so it's sort of a long commitment, and so perhaps that creates some hesitation also, because the barrier of entry is like, wow, it's like a 10-year decision, as opposed to actually there's many milestones there where should you decide you want to do something else, what you would have done would still be beneficial for what you pursue thereafter, right? So yeah. I think we have one that's going to pursue science now.
Yes. Yeah, I fully agree, and that's the problem as well, right? So for myself, of course, I didn't continue a career in engineering, not because I don't enjoy it, I do, but my area of interest was in more like in automotives, so automobiles engineering and car designing. So for me, if I were to step into that area, it's gonna be a long haul, right? It's like what Chunchi, you're saying.
Unless she accidentally mute it.
So it's like, Yes, you did. she's she's is she biting on the earpiece? That's super funny. Yeah, as I was saying, so I at that point I needed to think like, okay, that's 2 more years of master's program, and then like, what happens after that? Before I even get to really do what I wanted to really do. So it's like, of course, tons of hesitation, and then this whole nonprofit part of my career decided to take over, and it doesn't mean that I want to be entirely away from STEM, like what some of the things that we do at Women in Asia. It's encouraging conversations of women in STEM, or encouraging girls' education in this area. And I think that that's where my background, or whatever that I was learning, still would be able to contribute to, pass it on to the future generations of girls, right? Because it's like, you never know what are your areas of interest until you try doing it. But I think what I personally feel is that, and I tell a lot of the youths as well, like, you never know what you want to do if you don't even try. So go for it, right? If it's an engineering education that you're interested to do, try it and use that time to, like, whether is it look for more internships, like what Nailing was saying, venture more, understand more, then decide. And but by not even stepping into that education, I think it's a big loss to us as a community, because it's like, all these women could have been potential like Ada, it could have been potential women scientists, but if they choose not to step into that education in the first place, then that would affect. So Maylin, can I ask, I'm very interested, are you subtly hoping that Ada would also pursue a science career? Just curious as a mom.
Actually, I don't have any expectations. I feel like my role as a mom and a mom in science is to really show her my work and why is it important, but not to stress it on her or stress it upon her that it's something that you should do. But I do hope that she won't feel stressed about it at some point in her life, because there are bound to be people who say, like, oh, your mom's doing this and your mom used to do that, like, years ago. Like, so I'm hoping that that doesn't happen for her, but instead, like, hopefully through both of us, we got tangled somehow. As parents, we encourage her to explore. So if she really likes doing environment work in the future, I mean, I'll definitely be very supportive. But if she chooses to do music on arts or anything, like, we'll try our best to encourage her in that way as well. But at the moment, she doesn't have very much inclination to anything except,
of course,
but she's definitely, but she's an explorer. So, eating earphones is part of the process as well of learning whether it's edible.
Yeah, it's true. It starts with exploration first, right? I would say, yeah.
You wanna add anything? You wanna be a scientist? No, you don't know. So many hands. Yeah, that's pretty much what I think. Anything that she wants to do. And I think that's how I grew up as well. And I'm very grateful that my parents, although maybe they not consciously brought us outdoors. I mean, because it was a fun activity as a family. I think it's something that I grew loving, the environment and the nature, and that stuck with me for many years. And we'll just do what we can in a more urban environment, and we'll see how it goes. Oh, Ada. Oh, Ada.
Oh. Winchi, what about yourself? I mean, you work with so many incredible women who are just starting and helping them enable their first step, or help them scale the work they've been doing. What are some of the stories that you have heard, or interesting like sort of background stories, like what got all these women started? And even for yourself, why are you passionate to help this budding group of women scale and do good?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I will start with the fellows first. In so many ways, I think, like I was mentioning earlier, there's different points of inspiration to why they pursue what they do. And I think and the work that I think the whole ecosystem in supporting STEM has to do is according to, I would say, the different life stages of a woman's or a girl's life, right? And so we have those who are like early on in their university years already. You have to plant the seed that, hey, this is something that, if you're interested in, you should pursue it and try it out. And just as you describe, just try it. You actually really don't know whether you would like it or not. And I would also say go as far as, sometimes you can study something and really enjoy it, and then actually discover that when you work in it, you actually don't enjoy it. And that's perfectly okay. It doesn't mean that you have failed in any way. Like, it actually is a very reasonable outcome, so there's nothing to be concerned about that either. And so I think just creating this mindset of acceptancy of trying, I think it's really important. And then across a different woman's life, I think rather it is if they pursue research and then pursued a corporate environment and then decide that they want to pursue entrepreneurship, I think there's just different life moments that might encourage them to do this. And I think for women, motherhood is a really unique one that we find that's really interesting. And actually, we many times also in our program, we have older entrepreneurs who have been serial entrepreneurs in the program. And for example, yesterday when I was in Campus Party, I was actually in a interview with Rowan, who is actually one of our jury members for the European region, and she will become a jury member for our science and technology category. And her life has been a series of various life science ventures, and which is just incredible. And she says she's a product of her life's experiences when in the very beginning, and she had a very supportive father of her work in physics and math and etc. Never made it feel like it was unusual or anything like that. So it was I think it sort of really built a lot of character in sort of her work and how she evolved as a great role model for women. Yeah. And then in terms of for myself personally, why I'm really interested and passionate about this field of supporting women impact entrepreneurs, I think in general, I really find that, there's great purpose in life in redefining how capitalism will look like in the future. And, I love this Campus Party theme of rebooting the world. And in so many ways, it wasn't really we weren't really thinking about rebooting the world post-coronavirus. It's just been thinking about rebooting the world in general. And introducing a new form of capitalism where, businesses can be an important force for good, and that the goods and services that we produce are actually, reaching one of the UN SDG goals around the world, and that's not an exception, but the norm. And that, conservation work, as you described, Aileen, it shouldn't be like a low expected return business, because that should have been embedded in everyone's cost in doing business. And so just in general, I would say this is really important. And then when I saw that and realized that woman has an inclination in creating social and environmental change more so than men, and yet they actually receive more barrier to entry in creating these businesses, it just felt very natural. And also the expected return on most women businesses are higher. And so it just seems like, from a business sense, it makes sense. From just a social justice perspective, it made sense. And resource allocation perspective of the world, it made sense. So that's why I would say I'm very passionate about this work. And I think it's a great opportunity. I find it to be an incredible TAM, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what a lot of people keep thinking, it's like, oh, because of COVID, that's why we're doing this. But I totally agree with you. All these should have been, into consider. We should have kept all these and consider all these things, right? The triple bottom line, not just looking at things from a capitalistic point of view, but COVID, of course, accelerated all these things, even like with motherhood and parenthood, all the way to thinking about our environment and what kind of impact are we creating in this world. That's like, the whole argument on notion of essential businesses or essential services came in. It's like suddenly, right? Overnight, everyone, it's like we had to stop and realize that, fast fashion wasn't exactly just that, right? How we consume, how we buy things, how we treat the environment is very important. And what kind of work is truly what that we need. Yeah, so Mark is saying, let's reboot the world. Thank you, COVID.
Yeah. It's like gave us a meditative moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's sort of like some like saying going around is that it took a pandemic, a global pandemic in this case, for us to realize what's not sustainable for such a long time. How climate change or how the how some of our activities, if we do it consistently, can actually mitigate against the climate change effects. But yeah, I think it's really getting at least some people rethinking of capitalism and development as well, and how perhaps hopefully now the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, will be a lot more will be a lot more relevant than it was when it first came out about 10 years ago, I think. Yeah. So I mean, even I like just sort of recently found out about the SDGs a couple of years back, and also agree that there are some of the goals that are not well met. But hopefully after this, it'll be better. Yes.
I agree. There's some goals that need to be,
Yes.
more work on.
Yes. So we have about 4 more minutes to go to our session. Just want to ask on what are your plans for the rest of the year in terms of like the work. So Wingy, I know it's of course the upcoming submission. It's 31st July, right, for the women's.
Yes.
Yes. So what else is in line for the rest of 2020 for you?
Sure. So our call for application process ends end of July. And of course, we have all the other global categories, and then we have the science and technology category specifically. So if you are someone who is watching and you're actually an entrepreneur in other categories, feel free to apply the other category too. We're looking for you. I hope this is clear. And then for the rest of the year, basically, it's our evaluation process of the Cartier Women Initiative and selecting the fellows to be part of our program. And so we select 24 fellows out of globally, and then we try to and then we start our fellowship program next year. But feel free to also follow us on the Cartier Women Initiative.com website and our various social media channels, because we do create a lot of public events and webinars and community-driven events for the woman impact entrepreneurship community, or women who are interested in this area in general. So hopefully, if you're not a woman entrepreneur yet and you're considering it, you can benefit from some of these resources too.
Yes, to stress, yes, we are looking for you. You're the one we are looking for. Yeah. For yourself, Melin, or is Edda keeping you busy?
I feel like this whole scenario probably describes what I hope to achieve at the end of for the rest of the year, is to really survive the pandemic, honestly. I mean, well, now that there's some sort of like some of the services and have gone back to normal, but life isn't really gonna be it's not gonna be the same. At least for us, research, I think it took a pandemic as well to realize that we're not considered essential services here, or at least the kind of research that we do. So it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for us to be able to continue some of our environmental research, and we're definitely very worried because without the ability and the to actually go out to the field as often as we used to, it makes it very difficult for us to continue monitoring the health of reefs in this case. And it's an concern because like just very recently we have so climate change came to our shores in the form of a baby cry, in the form of coral bleaching, and we're worried that the corals may not recover. But fortunately, with quite a bit of the surveys that are going on right now, we're seeing that they are recovering slowly. But it's important data that we sort of missed out. We didn't collect it before the pandemic. So yeah, I think really, I think surviving the pandemic, be it research, be it parenthood, would be what I want to do for the rest of the year.
Okay, that's great. I mean, thank you for sharing all these authentic stories. I think that's essentially what we need, right? More authentic stories, more role models, more women that's leading and supporting more women through whether it's initiatives, funding, and help drive the direction, right? Say, hey, these are the women that are not receiving funding. These are women that, and create programs that are catered and more women like yourself. I really admire, Winchi, you telling more women that yes, you're the one that we're looking for, giving this kind of simple things like affirmation and support, so that we can sort of hopefully break this whole idea of perfection, and reaching out, and all these work from a lot of our women can be realized. Yeah. So thank you so much. I think that's all the time we have. Thank you all for staying online with us. I won't hold Maylin back further as well. Thank you, Maylin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you everyone for listening in as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Any last words from Winchi? What do you have? Any last words from yourself?
No, it's just been such a pleasure to be part of the campus party events, and really love the theme of rebooting the world. And thanks for having me.
Yes, please. So please, for all women entrepreneurs or scientists, everyone, just check out. Even if you're just interested, but have not started thinking about embarking the journey, please, check out Cartier Women's. Yes, Cartier Women Initiative. Please, go check it out. Reach out. Like we say, it's about building a community. It's about sharing resources, about hearing more authentic stories, and you really never know what kind of opportunity or possibility, like what we kept talking about throughout yesterday and today's session. So thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Vivian. All right.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah. So for those who are still listening, I'm just getting messages from the team saying that I have to make announcements. Yes. So actually, I find it even more tiring to do digital. It's been so hectic. Special thanks to everyone that's in the back room. Our team is like frantically all behind the scenes right now and helping support all these. So shout out to you guys, especially those who are in Melbourne time. So yes, what's up? Coming up next. Tonight, it will be this crazy session with yes, we would have Colin and Gui from Singapore, who's going to be talking about the world of cartoonists, titled "Boot Out the Inconvenient Cartoonist." So, and they have sort of a subtitle before during the session. The subtitle of the session is called "Wasting Time Before Al Gore," and that's right. The last session that's happening on global stage tonight. It's rebooting the web by pioneers of the internet. We would have Al Gore, Tim Berners-Lee, and Bin Cerf sharing about their thoughts so far. So this is a historic 1-hour conversation with all three of them together at one place, having a conversation about the web. Do tune in and follow the rest of our schedule on our website. Yes, so once again, thank you all for joining us. That's the end of our Australasia stage. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow, we have a full day pack of activities. It happens 10 a.m. Singapore time, plus GMT plus 8. So please stay with us. As I've mentioned earlier, this year's edition of Campus Party, it's 100% online, free, and also we are supporting the everyday heroes of Doctors Without Borders. So please go to our tab that says support MSF and donate if you can, and let's help the everyday heroes really fight this pandemic for us. Thank you very much. That's the end. Do come back for the evening session with Gui. And stay for Al Gore. I'll be personally staying for Al Gore as well. So do chat with us. Join our Slack group if you haven't. And see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Amongst conflict, natural disaster and epidemics, we are there. Our medical teams are drawing on years of experience in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, but not without you. As an independent organisation, Médecins Sans Frontières needs your support to continue our life-saving work. Help us fight the COVID-19 pandemic and protect the most vulnerable in all our projects. Donate now.